The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Okay, good evening everyone. We'll call the August 22nd regular council meeting to order. And first of all, under presentations, it's a privilege this evening to introduce our new fire chief, Mr. Rick Hawes.
No.
Oh, sorry, I screwed up. Rick Davies.
That's okay, we're not live.
But you're in good company, Rick. Rick Hawes was a great chief. Okay, let me give some history. So Rick Davies has been a volunteer since 2000. He started being deputy in 2017, so you've been deputy for 5 years. You have a wife and 2 children. And anything else you'd like to add?
Just looking forward to the opportunity.
Okay, well, thank you so much for accepting the opportunity. I know you and the city manager have talked. And any comments from members of council? Because we will want a motion to accept Rick as fire chief. Councillor Vroba.
Thank you, Worship. I will make that motion, and I want to say welcome, but I mean, you've already been here, so congratulations. And yes, I think you're the right man for the job, and so good luck in the coming months, years.
And decades. Thank you, Councillor Vroba. Have we got a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Ford. Any comments from Councillor Ford?
I just echo Councillor Vroba and welcome, and we'll see how long it takes for you to get sick of us.
Super. Anyway, congratulations, Rick. We know you'll do a fantastic job. And again, I always say this, you're more than welcome to spend a meeting. I have yet to have anyone stay, but again, I totally understand if you have other things you may have to do. Okay, thank you so much again. Yeah. What's that? Okay. Rick? Yes. I'll just shake your hand, and probably council will shake your hand as well. Just as a good welcoming in Oakland. Welcome, my friend. You'll do a great job. I know you will. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Are you still kimped up?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That was good, sir.
Thanks. Okay, thanks everyone. So now we'll move into the adoption of the agenda. As you may have noticed, Council, we have an addendum to the agenda. It's a proclamation for Ukraine's 31st Independence Day. This came late with FCM, so we would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda with the inclusion of the Independence Day for the Ukraine. Thank you. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll make that amendment,
Okay.
or that motion.
Okay, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Walliser? Okay, thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next, under minutes, could we have a motion, please, to accept the council meeting minutes of July 25th? Thank you. Councillor Frank? Seconded by Councillor Walliser. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have a letter from the Ministry of Government Relations with the TAPD funding for 2022. Now, this city clerk is basically for the transit assistance for people with disabilities, which would be the acronym TAPD, correct?
Correct.
Now, we put in for funding, but we still haven't got a solid answer on whether or not we're going to get that, other than the 21. We've got 92,000, right, coming?
Yeah.
But you also asked for next year, correct?
No.
We asked for
You did?
capital.
Okay, that was on the capital side, and they haven't got back to us. Anyway, this is the funding for 22-23 is $92,499. So we are thankful for that, and we will forward that on to the proper.
Can you just accept it, please?
Yeah, so what we will need is acceptance of the correspondence. Thank you, Councillor Vrova, seconded by Councillor Clark. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have from the Estevan Bears under 18 AAA Hockey Club, the request for reduced fees. Please accept this letter on behalf of the Estevan under 18 AAA Bears Hockey Club in regard to the contract our hockey club has with the City of Estevan. In that contract, it currently reads that we are technically in our third season as a program and should be paying full ice rental fees. At this time, would you please take into consideration some requests for the upcoming season? We would like to request a continued reduced rate of 50%, which is what they're getting now, of ice rental cost for the 2022-23 season. We are asking for the reduced rate for a few reasons. Last summer, we engaged to complete a professional consultation on the direction of the club in various facets, along with setting up the club's mission, vision, values. Statement was the advice that we aim to get the club to a financial position of a full year of operating budget. We anticipate at this point we will be 4 to 5 years away from that goal. We are fortunate to have the 3-year agreement between the City of Estevan and the Bears with reduced rates already. With COVID-19 at its height, during our first year in operation, it led to the cancellation of our season, and in turn, us not being able to utilize our reduced ice rate to its fullest. Last season was our first full season, and we felt it was more of a success, but still did not allow us much time to create a fan base and more income. We are working in a positive direction toward these goals. As we move into our third season, we are experiencing many challenges with scheduling, which are expected to put stress on our financial situation. Having to leave Affinity Place for more than 5 weeks for the curling event and Festival of Trees has caused us to schedule more and longer road trips. We have also been informed that there will be an event at Affinity Place on September 24th. This would be the free concert. This weekend was scheduled to be our home opening weekend, playing 2 games against Yorkton. We were told about this information 34 days after our scheduling meeting. This unexpected event will cause us to reschedule with Yorkton in an already full schedule and very unlikely to find a weekend to do so at Affinity. With not being able to play on the September 24th weekend, this will now make Tuesday, September 27th, our home opening game, which will see lower gate admission and 50-50 sales. Their argument is because it's not on the weekend. We are very grateful for the donations that we currently receive and continue to receive. We are working hard to create a positive impact on our community and gain more donations and involvement. We are also now able to engage more in the community and work toward more active fundraising. COVID also negatively influenced this process, but we are working hard to engage more. This will also take time to build. As we look into the future of building the Bears program and making Estevan and the Bears a destination that players want to come and play, we see the challenges around our practice time and limited ice time in Estevan. Currently, the Bears are practicing in the morning from a start time of 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. Players are forced to take a spare at the Comp High School to make practices. Our board proposes to the city the following: half rate ice rental for practices, full rates for game times after the 22-23 season. There have been many challenges over the last 2 seasons with starting under 18 AAA hockey team, but we feel very fortunate and grateful for all that the City of Estevan has done to help us get to this point. We plan to continue to grow and provide this community with more great hockey and hockey players. If you could accept our request to reduce our ice rates, that would be greatly appreciated. And I know with all of minor hockey and all of the ice users, we do come into conflict sometimes with the fact if we have a big curling event with the Festival of Trees, but at the end of the day, I mean, we've had that back and forth, we've had that conflict for a number of years. So, you know, we have our managers in place to try to make the best of that situation, and I do understand it's not easy. So what's the wish of council? Councillor Frank.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm just, and maybe some clarification here, a little confused. He's asked for half rate rentals at the first half of this, and then at the very end he asked for half rate rentals for practices and full rate rentals, and that's after the 2022-2023 season. So is that's what he's wanting going forward? And then this year he wants half price, they want half price for the entire season, and then next year they want half price for...
Normally, Councillor Frank, they would be paying full starting this year. So they're asking for half ice rentals for all the practices this year and full rates for game times after the 22-23 season. So after this hockey season, they will agree to pay full ice rentals, but not for this year.
But for the
they're
games.
Asking for half for this year.
Okay, so I'm not too sure about the going into next season. I don't know if I want to worry too much about that. I think I would be in favor of doing, I agree with them that their first season, we agreed to 2 years, and their first season was kind of an unexpected change. So I'd be agreement for this year doing half rate rental, kind of following that 2-year schedule that we originally sent out and agreeing with that. I don't know that I want to pass a motion doing anything and going into the following years. I think that can be assessed that year.
Good point.
Yeah.
They can come forward again for next year.
That would be my preference. I just want to make sure we have a better, clearer agreement going into that following year. But this year, for this year, I would agree to the 50%. So that's my motion.
Okay, thank you for that. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Ford.
I'll second that. And then maybe one day when they get a chance, we could invite them to come here and we could actually discuss their 4 to 5 year plans and their consultation, and, you know, get a little bit of publicity for them too, also to the, let's hear about their seasons and how they plan on moving forward, and maybe it'll help gather some attention as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. Perhaps City Clerk, we could ask them to come before, not this hockey season, but before the following hockey season, and give us a brief overview and, you know, where they hope to go. They should have a lot of their plans in place by then. And any other discussion from members of council? Councillor Clark?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. I'd also like to speak in favor of that. I know that their plans were altered with COVID and with what's going on, but they have a plan to be a successful organization in the community at this time. And I think from the numbers, we're not talking, I think it's around $7,000 that we would waive from them, and I think that's reasonable to make sure that this program succeeds in our community. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Vrope.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to mention too that a lot of these kids are from out of town, and so because they're weekend games, a lot of their parents, friends, family, whoever, they come into for the weekend. So it's also an economic spin-off there too for our restaurants and our hotels. So I think it's great, and hopefully a lot of people will support them this year, go out and buy a season ticket and get behind the Bears, and, you know, let's get them into a successful season so we can have some spin-off from that too. So I definitely support it too.
Absolutely. Good point. Okay. Any other comments? Seeing no hands up. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under written reports of committees, we have from the Woodlawn Regional Park, the AGM minutes of March 31st, 2021. And I apologize, they're a year late, City Clerk, but I guess that's how we always get them a year later. I don't know anyone from the board would respond. Councillor Vroba.
Thank you, Your Worship. The reason they seem like they're a year late is because the minutes to the AGM do not get approved till the following AGM, which is always the following year.
Well,
so, yeah. So
could we maybe ask if they could maybe make that
I think it
motion at the
happens.
following meeting?
No, because I think it happens at all AGMs, is you wait until the following year before you actually make the motion to approve it.
Wow,
So,
okay, interesting.
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation. Okay, do we have a motion, or were you willing to make that motion to accept?
Yes, I'll make the motion for acceptance and
Okay,
approval.
thank you. Seconded by Councillor Clark. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under executive reports, we have from the Water Services Manager, Greg Choma, water pressure report, tabled from July. So we'll just go over that. I know Mr. Choma has been unhappy for a number of years with his water pressure. He has now gone ahead and put a pressure system in place, which he would like the city to pay for. So we've waited for this report from Shane. Thank you, Shane, for bringing that forward. So in 2018, I received a complaint about pressure issues at night. After doing some investigation, I found that when Willock was filling over 60 liters a second, thank you, that it was creating a pressure drop in the southwest side. A pressure logger was used to confirm this. At the time, the Water and Sewer Division and myself figured out a solution. We kept the valves closed at Ellis Road and implemented a daytime fill and nighttime fill set points when the water plant was not running. We also increased Smith Street pressure by 10 psi. We checked and it seemed to keep the pressure in the area around 40 psi. In 2020, I had a complaint about pressure in the area. We put the logger on again and found the pressure was still around the 40 psi at night. The lowest the pressure dropped was 39.3 psi. I phoned back to the complainant and let him know of my findings. There was not a pressure drop. I had got notified about a complaint about pressure in the area and installed a pressure logger again. I pulled the data off the logger and 1968 reading, the lowest pressure recorded was 37.7. The daytime pressure averaged 46 psi, with the nighttime pressure averaging 41 psi. The pressure in the area remains unchanged from 2 years ago. I generally try to keep the pressure above 35 psi in all areas of the city. Depending on what is happening in the city and the water use, the pressure can fluctuate slightly in an area. If there is major construction or water breaks, the pressure can drop significantly. There is nothing that the city can do to regulate what people do inside their properties, age of piping, and what they have hooked onto their system. For this reason, under bylaw 6.3, the city does not guarantee a constant supply of water or a constant pressure or volume of water. Okay, Shane, thanks for coming this evening. Did you have anything to add to that?
No, it's all pretty much stated in my
It's all there?
report.
Okay, well, thank you for that report. What's the wish of council on this request? Councillor Vroegel.
I don't think, in my opinion, I'd like to make the motion that we don't approve the refund or the request for him to be reimbursed with the funds, due to the fact that anybody that can go out and say, well, my pressure isn't good enough for what I have on my property, could then have the right to go out and spend the money that they decide is the appropriate amount, get their fix done, and come back and ask the city to reimburse. So I think that if he found a solution to a problem that he decided was on his property, then that's good that he has a solution. But according to our water manager, it doesn't sound like the problem was based on the city side. So,
Because we are meeting the specs
Right.
that we need at this time within
Yeah.
the city.
so I would just like to make the motion that we do not approve the request for reimbursement by
Okay.
Mr. Choma.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vroegel. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Walliser? Okay, any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Shane. Next, under executive reports, we have from Public Works / Engineering, the UHPC contract. So, I'll try to be quick on this. Maybe city manager wants to add, but City of Estevan has had discussions over the years with the Ministry of Highways regarding the UHCP, which is the Urban Highway Connector Program. The Ministry of Highways states that the City of Estevan boundary limits will be extended beyond what the city is currently maintaining. They have sent a contract. It's attached in this report. Also attached to this report is a map of the highway connectors that would be the responsibility of the City of Estevan. So they're basically shifting more onto the city from what we did before. The maintenance of these connector highways would be signage, grass mowing, illumination, hot patching, crack filling, snow and ice removal, and street sweeping. The Saskatchewan Ministry of Highways has offered its services to contract some of the work for the City of Estevan on the Highway 47 South and Highway 18 connectors for an annual fee of $15,929. Now, what's your thoughts, City Manager, if we were to take them up on that? Would that cost less than if we did it, or are they actually giving us a break for that?
Thank you, Worship. Norm McBaby will answer that a little more, but I know that south area that the city limits does go down Highway 18 quite a ways as well, and that we have never looked after that, but it is within city boundaries. So I would think, Norm, would you say that paying highways to complete that work would be satisfactory?
Norm?
Your Worship, that area we're speaking of is Highway 47 South and also a portion of Highway 18. And attached to the report is some of the costs, and I would recommend that we would pay Ministry of Highways to look after that portion of the road because the pricing is good.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, well, thank you for that. Now I'll read on. The East City entrance will see its boundaries moved from currently Kensington Avenue to Sawyer Road, right to the edge of our city. Snow and ice removal, along with patching, crack filling, sweeping, signage, and ditch cutting. The ministry will pay the City of Estevan a sum of $20,887 per year to look after the maintenance on this stretch of the connector highway. What's your thoughts on that, Norm?
It is a good portion of road. The overpass is involved, so any work that's done above it or on it, now you're required to flag people. There's some work to be done. It involves the crack filling, the sweeping, snow removal. As we know, we just have graders on our fleet. We don't have a highway plow truck. The speed limit in that area is 30 over the overpass, or sorry, 50 kilometers, and after the overpass it goes to 80. I just feel that our fleet doesn't have equipment that is suited for highway snow removal. The ministry is quite, as Jeff can state, they're adamant that that is yours. It didn't sound like any negotiation.
Yeah, it's basically they're telling us there isn't a lot of negotiations. It's another point of, more offloading by the province onto us. And I guess we'll have to start looking probably to do the proper job, since it looks like we have no alternative. We'll probably have to look at a highway truck, Norm, to do this properly, correct?
In my mind and the managers, I think that's something we really got to look at because not only the east side, now we're talking the west portion. We used to maintain up to 16th Avenue. Now they want us to go through the valley, plow the snow, sweep the streets, crack fill, all the way to Sister Roddy Road. So now we're adding kilometers to our city.
Exactly.
And higher speeds.
And I see the hands up. I'll just finish reading this letter and then we'll get into discussion. The west side of the city, as you mentioned, Norm, will see the new boundary at Sister Roddy Road. Currently, our boundary is 16th Ave. The City of Estevan will now have to move a considerable amount of snow and conduct pavement maintenance from 16th Ave through the valley and underpass to Sister Roddy Road. There is no compensation from the ministry on the west side. Saskatchewan Highways states this is now ours to look after. Now we've got a few issues. Again, going down in the valley, that is shifting, that highway is shifting. It's been shifting for a number of years. It will continue to shift. So we do not want to absolve the ministry of looking after that. And the other issue on the east side is the overpass. A new overpass is $25 million. I hope this isn't their intention, slowly but surely, to say, okay, now that overpass, you've been looking after it, now that's your baby, you're going to have to pay for it. So there's a few serious issues that we have concerns with. The north entrance on Highway 47 is now the RM Road, or otherwise known as the Bean Fate Grid. All maintenance and snow removal will be taken care of by the City of Estevan according to this proposed contract. There is no compensation for this stretch of highway from the ministry. The City of Estevan is currently not equipped with machinery or manpower to maintain highways. Our snow removal fleet, as you mentioned, Norm, is equipped with 2 graders to move the snow on city streets. If this agreement is accepted, the Roads and Drainage Department would possibly like to study the possibility of obtaining a new snowplow truck equipped with a sand spreader similar to what the Department of Highways use. That's those huge tandems with the big V-blade in front. And then you load it with gravel and away you go. This truck could not only be used on the highway connectors, but also on streets located on the perimeter of the city. Clearing off highways with slow-moving graders is not ideal. Although the footprint of the added proposed highway connectors to the City of Estevan may not look large, it will take extra man-hours and resources to fulfill all the services from snow removal to pavement maintenance. So thank you for that, Norm. Okay, Councillor Frank?
Thanks, Your Worship.
Then Councillor Clark.
Your comment is exactly what I was concerned about with the overpass. I know in previous years they've pitched things like this. I think the last time we saw this agreement, they were offering us some compensation, but wanted us to have ownership of the overpass, which we rejected at that time, and rightfully so. So that would be my one question on this, and I wouldn't be comfortable passing anything unless we find out for sure that we will not own that overpass or any cost to repair it. That would be my one question, if we know anything.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Frank. And the other concern is that highway going down in the valley.
Yeah, that's
They've been propping that up for years, and that's not going away.
It's going to be a huge expense.
City Manager?
Thank you, Worship. Speak to Councillor Frank's comments. So there is 2 agreements. One's an operation and maintenance agreement, which is this, mainly about the snow removal. Then there's the UHCP framework agreement, which includes the rehab and the percentage costs and a lot of that. We made sure that when we talked to Ministry of Highways that these were 2 separate things, and that if we were to agree with the snow maintenance, that has nothing to do with us taking the liability of a failed overpass or underpass, and that would be a whole different discussion on a different agreement.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, because that was my biggest concern.
Yeah, we've always
taking on that.
maintained that caveat, and rightly so.
Good.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Frank. Councillor Clark, then Councillor Brooke.
Yeah, thanks.
Then Councillor Ford. Okay.
Thanks, Your Worship. That answers part of my question. I do think that we should counterback it because they're downloading these different costs, that we'll need different equipment, that there's a much higher cost for us to look after the highways for them, and that we'd have to be compensated for the change of our operations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At least capital costs to buy one of them big trucks, I would think, for sure. Councillor Broba?
Thank you, Worship. I think that's exactly what's happening here is the province is just trying to unload this off onto the cities and towns. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to drive through their snow truck, they're going to pick up their blade, head off, and then put it down where it starts again for them. And they're going to leave us having to purchase a big truck, which is going to result in higher expenses for the city. And then the province is going to come back and say, well, look at us, we saved you money. But you didn't. You just passed it off on a different person to collect it.
Exactly. Higher capital, and we'll probably end up needing labor to run that truck as well.
Yeah, no, I think this is poor taste for them.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Ford.
Thanks, Your Worship. My only concern would be on say a major snow year like we had this year. We are being charged, say, almost $16,000 for them to maintain certain portions of the highway, etc. But on a major snowfall year, my concern would be they would up that charge to us, where we're only receiving $20,000, and then we're in the hole for having to maintain these highways. So is there some sort of way we could create an agreement with them based on like the year, or have our compensation increase every single year? Because I mean, it's not cheap to have people working. It's not cheap for fuel, for anything anymore, and I don't feel that $20,000 is sufficient right now.
Well, that is a fair comment, Councillor Ford. The only thing, if there's extra, if they give us a set amount and then there's extra costs incurred, I guess that's something City Manager we could always approach them on. But usually they're pretty good. If there's less, they would honor that amount. We would get paid that, City Manager?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, it's based on just roadway length. It has nothing to do with the amount of work that's done in a year. And I did ask about if there was rate increases based on things like that. And unfortunately, no, the agreement's based on UHCP rates approved by the government of Saskatchewan. There's no provision for inflationary increases.
Okay, so Norm, were you suggesting on the first, the annual fee, $15,900, we'll maybe let them do that? We can probably live with that. But on the second, with us doing all of the extra work, that we can't agree to that at this time, we'll need more discussion.
I think it's a decision for council to make,
But as you mentioned before, you didn't have a big problem with the $15,900?
no, for letting them contract.
Letting them do it.
I didn't have a problem with that. I think that's reasonable, and it may cost us more to do it. The other entrances, there was no negotiating north and west. There's nothing. That's just.
We were just told.
That's yours, and I think they just pick up the blades if we don't agree. I'm just my thinking.
Okay, thank you. City Manager?
Yeah. Thank you, Worship. Just to speak to that's kind of what, if we don't agree with an O&M agreement in any way, shape, or form, they will just have no agreement with us and will not enter city boundaries. So unfortunately, our city boundary is Sawyer Road and Sister Roddy. But the reason this has kind of been looked after by them is as the bypass was completed, their provincial interest changed. But they continued to do what they had done because it was still considered the urban highway connector. They really have no obligation to come within city limits at any point now that the actual highway is the bypass. So we can try to negotiate and get some of those costs, but just knowing that was what was told to us when we asked for similar type items in our meeting. So,
good point. Councillor Frank?
Thanks, Your Worship. I think, yeah, I would agree with obviously using them like Norm said is just going to be the cheaper options. We'll take it. I would like to see us at least try to go back to them and request some capital funding at very least. I don't know what the rest of council thinks, but that's kind of my thought. Obviously, they're not. I understand where they're coming at, not wanting to increase any of our actual funding because that's an ongoing expense that they're going to want to look at. But to force this on us to ask for a one-time, you can buy us some new equipment, being that we'll have to buy that new equipment anyways, I think is a reasonable request on our part. That's my perspective on it, so that would be what I'd like to see us go back with, but I'll let the rest of council.
Okay, so Councillor Frank, you'll make that motion. Would you do that?
I'd make that
We'll
motion.
accept
Yep.
the top part on contracting out to them for that $15,900, but at the same time, for us to do the extra duties,
We'd like to
we
see some
want
capital
to
funding.
at least have them come back to us with, for example, some capital costs for that piece of equipment.
Agreed.
Okay, Councillor Clark?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just had one question there. So from like Sawyer training out to the bypass, is that being given to the RM to look after too?
thank you, Councillor Clark. So I don't know that for sure, but I'm guessing they would be having similar discussions with the RMs because their provincial interests have changed. We can try to get that out of the RM. They're at no obligation to tell us that, but similar things. They would not want to come inside of the bypass, turn their trucks around on roads that aren't their interest anymore, would be my assumption. But I can find that out.
Right.
At the liaison, we could ask.
Okay. I just have a question then. So they would, if they had a big snowstorm, they would have to wait for the RM to come and clear that road before they would take out their from their new location. That's going to have to cross into the RM to get to the highway. Is that not a concern?
Yeah, well,
that's a good
that's a
point.
fair comment. City Manager, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I'm not sure what their parameters are outside of our city limits. We haven't had that discussion, but it's a good question to ask back.
Yeah, I think that's a good question to bring up at the liaison when we talk to the RM, so at least we're all on the same page. Because right now, I don't think we are. Councillor Broba?
That's what I was just going to ask, if we could hold off on this to the next RM liaison meeting and then develop your letter almost in conjunction with what they're also maybe going to say, do a little bit of team play there.
Okay.
But I do support what Councillor Frank is saying.
Okay, are you seconding that, Councillor Broba?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, ready for the question, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Next, could we have a motion to accept, please, the fire reports for June and July? Thank you, Norm. Councillor Clark, thank you. Have we got a seconder? Okay. Councillor Frank seconded. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next, under executive reports, could we have a motion, please, to accept the building official permit for July? Thank you. Councillor Broba. Councillor Ford, did you have your hand up there earlier? Thank you. Okay. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, we have the water quality report for July. Anything you had to add there, Shane? I think everything's going good. The water tower's coming along good. We'll soon be wrapping that old girl up.
Yes, I just met with the contractors this morning and got an update with them. They are finished sandblasting the top portion of everything they just welded, and they are now just going to kind of do some of the sandblast what they've missed, and then I'm hoping they'll be painting next week, and then we can start to remove some of the scaffolding out. Then they need to still sandblast the bottom and then paint it. So I'm hoping end of September,
Okay,
depending on weather.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd like to get in there before they close her up, have a booze. So if any members of council want to entertain that, give that some thought. Okay, thanks for that, Shane. And why am I getting all the strange looks? You're not going to get welded in after, honest. I don't think, anyway.
There's a hole in this side that anyone can fit through.
Yeah.
My hope is, because I know that was quite skinny before, I'm hoping that a person of my size can fit in now. That's my that's my dream.
We'll get you in there, Councillor Frank. Okay, could we have that motion, please, for the water quality report? Thank you, Councillor Ford. Seconded by Councillor Clark. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under executive reports, we have from Land Development, the subdivision report on Morsky Drive. Richard, thank you for stepping up to the plate. Now, are we a little bit late? Because they're already building in there. We're a little bit late with this, or what happened there?
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. Yes, they started off in early part of this year with their development permit and building permits. That's why there's no servicing agreements or anything attached to this recommendation. That was dealt with through the development permit process and with city engineering permits.
Okay.
Typically, you're right. You do the subdivision, then you build afterwards. The developer in this case did not want to do that, so.
Okay, so again, it was a case of us working with the developer to make this happen, and it's going to be great.
We worked it out, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So the recommendation then, Richard, is subdivision to be registered in accordance with the attached tentative plan dated June 16th of 22 as prepared by Midwest Surveys under file ES-0285-22-J3-PPC, and the application fee for certificate of approval of $150, correct?
Yes, if council determined not to approve this recommendation, what you'll wind up then is a single lot with 5 duplexes on it.
Okay, well, I'm sure that we will agree, Richard. Yeah.
Just so you know.
Okay. Okay, so what's the wish of council? Have we got a motion for this, Councillor Frank?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship, and I'm sure the reason developer went forward is because this is very good. It's a good thing for the city. We're very excited to see development happening here. you know, a little out of order in the process, but that's okay because it's something we're very, very excited to see happening. I think
Totally.
those condos are going to be great for the city.
Great
a lot of
thing
people
for
are
the
exciting.
city.
So, there's no issues with it. So I would see no reason not to give it, make the motion to accept.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a second? Thank you, Councillor Ford. This is right over in your neck of the woods. You get to look out your front yard and see it happening, so that's great. Any other questions? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, also from Land Development, from Beeline Taxi, Boulevard sign permits for 310 4th. Anything you have to say on that, Rich? Just basically, it's recommended the council authorize city admin to enter into a new standard lease agreement with Beeline Taxi for a boulevard sign permit and lease at 206 4th. And this change is from the perspective of a good neighbor policy, and the existing agreement is in good standing. It is recommended the $150 annual fee be waived. Richard, did you want to say anything to that?
Yes, Mayor and Council. What happened here is where the sign is currently, people might be familiar with that property. That property was gained by the city and then resold under the tax process, and the current landowner there asked if that sign could be relocated, even though everything is perfectly fine. The taxi company agreed to a new site. We found a site that would work and actually had landowner acceptance of it for the adjacent landowner, even though it's not necessary. And so that's why, because it's more the city trying to get everybody to get along and accommodate. That's why I said, can we do this with no charge?
Yeah, and sometimes the kids don't play well in the sandbox, and we have to intervene and help them in whichever way we can to smooth things over. Councillor Frey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm chatty tonight. You can call me Councillor Rowe. I know you did. You did.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, can I run over to Councillor Rowe first?
Oh, you can go. Okay. I was actually going to say this Beeline one. I know we've had to approve it for the last few years because it sits forward on the boulevard, which we'd never had too many complaints about. But I actually had a complaint about it this just a couple months ago. So I was kind of thought, oh, this kind of resolves that. My question was going to be: is this going to be forward on a boulevard again, or is it going to be set a little further back?
Yeah, it's a boulevard rental, so we still will invoice them again on January and.
Okay, so it will still be forward. Do we know, is there any sightlines or anything that look like they're going to be blocked, or that was just the one?
No, that's the thing. The sign has to be at least 25 feet from another sign and has to be far enough away from the intersection so it doesn't interfere with traffic movement.
It'll have to fall within our parameters.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Frank. Sorry, Councillor Broba. I should be going to you automatically.
I know,
right?
I don't know what was wrong there, but
What happened
it's
there?
totally fine.
I just had a lapse. Sorry.
I was just going to clarify with the annual fee being waived. He's actually technically already paid the annual fee for 2022.
Yes.
It's just because we're moving locations that we won't charge him a second fee.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that so people don't think that we're actually giving someone a 1-year free fee to have it there. So I would make the recommendation. I checked it out on Google Maps there. I think it's going to be quite fine. So it'll be
Okay,
good.
thank you, Councillor Broba. You'll make the motion.
I'll make the motion.
And have we got the seconder? Thank you, Councillor Walliser. Any further questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under executive reports, boy, City Clerk, you've been busy. We got a lot on this page. She's totally exhausted. Okay, from the Tri-Mount subdivision, the extension phase 4. So the developer Tri-Mount, which we've had a relationship with for a number of years, has expressed an interest in further extension. From a technical point of view, Land Development Services would support consideration of another 2-year extension to December 31st, 2024. Richard, anything you want to add to that?
Yes, Mayor and Council. The agreement that we have in place currently with Tri-Mount gives them right of first refusal. So if we receive a development proposal on all or a portion of those lands and they don't want to match it, so we're free to go. So there's not really a downside as far as I can see to the city giving another 2 years.
Okay, Just wait, I want to check with Councillor Froba. You didn't have your hand up?
Nope.
Okay. Councillor Frank. And then Councillor Ford. No, Councillor Ford first. There you go.
Thank
Put
you.
them hands up real quick and high, guys.
We're fighting now that Councillor Cernick isn't here tonight. With this, I would be okay with this, but can we check in with them at the year mark? Like, this is now going on what seems to be a 6-year extension, so it would just be nice to hear from them without having to be told again in 2 years from then that, and I hope they would develop it from then, but it would be nice to just check in with them to see what their plans are and stuff about halfway through this extension if possible.
Okay, we'll maybe make that, if you're willing to make that motion, Councillor Ford, we'll have that as part of that motion, that they come and touch base with us, because now with the economy picking up, that's a fair comment. You know, they could look at, since there's other building going on within the city now, look at something like that. Okay, so that'll be part of your motion. Councillor Frank, are you seconding?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, and I will second. The one other comment I just wanted to add is I've had some complaints about just the unsightly grounds around there. They have the parking garage built for their extra condo building that they never finished developing over in that area. That property is somewhat unkept sometimes, and I know we can refer to bylaw and stuff like that, but given that we have an agreement with Trimount, I'd like to make sure that it's expressed to them that we shouldn't have to go through a bylaw process to make sure that that's kept up, that they would do that in good faith with this agreement. So that's my one other request there. So.
Good point. Okay, thank you. Anything else? We have the motion. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Everyone was in agreement, City Clerk. Okay, next, under executive reports, we have from Land Development, the zoning bylaw feedback report. Richard, would you like to quickly go over that with us?
Sure. Last spring, council approved the draft zoning bylaw for public release as a document. It wasn't under formal bylaw. And so the consultation period ended, and then council got involved with the downtown plan. So we held off on bringing this back to council. That's why you're seeing it, several months later than it could have been. So what I have here is a summary of potential changes that could be made to the draft document as you last saw it. And if everybody's seen it, I can either go through it line by line or just open it up for any questions that may be.
Yeah, I think, Richard, thank you, first of all, for doing this. And secondly, council's had this in their hands for a while, so it's probably fair to go right to the questions. And I think we're just giving first reading tonight and then, no? Okay.
What I would like to do, Mayor, Your Worship, and Council, is I'll take the feedback that you give me from today and then I'll put a brand new document together.
Okay.
That Council can then look at with,
before we move forward with,
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. I think Councillor Vroba, did you have your hand up? I don't want to supersede you.
I did.
Okay, then Councillor Walliser. And I'm not even looking at Councillor Frank.
Not yet, not yet.
Just so you know.
Thank you. The section 4, 8, 15, 12, the home-based business vehicles on roadway. So you have on there, no trailers or vehicles of the home-based business shall be parked on a public roadway. And I was just going to say there was something else coming down the pipe here about regarding trailers and stuff.
Yes.
So I would just say if you could coordinate that with that new bylaw that's also coming in.
With the trip.
Right. I don't want to say right now and open exactly what's coming down the pipe, but if you could just take that upon yourself before you bring it back to make sure that it's coordinated with that new bylaw that's coming out.
Yes, the context for that, on that one, just to clarify it a bit, the provision under the draft business bylaw is for the trailer to be parked on the street at a work site, whereas this is being parked on the street at the home-based business location. And what happened here a few years ago, we had a business that's thriving now, but it started as a home-based business, and we had numerous complaints because we had 5-ton trucks and gooseneck trailers and what have you taking up all the parking space day after day after day, and bylaw was involved with that. So that is the context behind it, but I can definitely tie the two together so that it's clear to any reader that.
Right, because I'm thinking of, say, the individual contractor who has a trailer, who comes home every night, parks his trailer, gets the right paperwork to do that. I'd hate to see this conflict with the new bylaw, so.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vroba. Councillor Frank, did you have anything to? Okay, Councillor Willies.
Thank you, Your Worship. Looking at 7.11F, it says no more than 50% of any lot may be developed with an imperviable surface unless approved by city engineering. I'm interested if we can have a bit more context around that moving forward. I know in other cities, there's been pilot projects looking at things like laneway homes as another option to increase density in older areas of town. And I think a stipulation like this might bring extra information to council that maybe could just be proactively addressed in the new bylaw.
Sure. The 50% rule, that's actually been in place. It's in place in our current zoning bylaw. And what that is tied to is our city engineering stormwater drainage standards. Basically, when someone's developing a residential lot, we try to keep 50% of the area of the lot as green space, or if it's a deck that water can filter through down to the ground, that's fine, in order to promote ground filtration of stormwater so it doesn't all run off. Because that's the way that the infrastructure for the city, curb and gutter, stormwater, everything is designed for. So what the provision of this bylaw is intended to do is if somebody wants to exceed that and go and have more than 50% coverage, then it's something that would get bumped to city engineering for a recommendation, because it may not be a bad thing in every case. Hopefully that helps context.
Okay, well, thanks for the explanation, Richard. And yeah, I think a lot of this is good stuff, so please, council, maybe read it again, go over it some more, and we can continue discussions on that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I'll put a new bylaw together based on this for your consideration at a later date.
Okay, and could we have a motion for the report, please? Thank you. Councillor Frobus, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any further questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Okay, next, under executive reports, we have from Land Development, the business bylaw report, and we're looking at giving this first reading later. Richard, right? Anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, City Council's looked at this bylaw before and approved it for public review. The big change under the version that you have now compared to what was in the last time you saw it was the provisions regarding mobile concessions, or food trucks as we like to call them, being parked on 4th Street have been removed. The reason for that has been two-part, I guess. One is the latest version of the downtown plan had angle parking on 4th Street, which would not be too compatible with food truck parking under normal circumstances. The other one is I did a parking analysis of the 5 parking lots that the city owns over various days to see what percentage of the lots were in use. And in my view, that even during the day, there's room there for something like what you have on the Thursday night event, where you could have some food trucks. If they were going to be downtown, if council wanted to allow that, the city parking lots, I believe there's room to accommodate them there. So there's no need for them to be on the street, and we remove those provisions.
Yeah, I think that's fair now that we've had that experience, and in some cases, they actually want the trucks to come, which would drum up more business, correct? Okay, so any comments from council? If not, could we have a motion to accept the business bylaw report? Thank you. Councillor Wallies, seconded by Councillor Ford. Any further questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Consent type, Councillor Wallies. Okay, next, under introduction of bylaws, here we are. We will entertain first reading of bylaw 2022-2060, business bylaw, first reading. Could we have a motion for that, please? Thank you. Councillor Ford, seconded by Councillor Clark. All in favor? Carried. Super, thank you. Next, under public hearings and reports, this evening we have none. Giving notice, we have the proclamation of Ukraine's 31st Independence Day. And I will read that out. My goodness, I'm getting wordy tonight. Whereas the Act of Declaration of Independence of Ukraine was adopted by the Parliament of Ukraine, referred to as the Verkhovna Rada, on August 24, 1991, the Parliament of Ukraine formally declared an independent and democratic Ukrainian state, establishing the territorial integrity of Ukraine as sovereign and inviolable, further upheld by an overwhelming majority of Ukrainians in a national referendum in December of that same year. And whereas, while the portions of Ukraine's territory are currently under Russian military occupation in contravention of international law, we honor the effects and sacrifices of the armed forces of Ukraine to stave off further Russian military advances in Ukraine and their readiness to defend the entire European continent and its allies against further aggressive actions of the Kremlin. And whereas Canada's House of Commons recognized that the Russian Federation's war in Ukraine as a genocide against the Ukrainian people, this motion was introduced by Heather McPherson, MP, Edmonton Strathcona, was adopted by the House of Commons unanimously, and whereas for centuries the people of Ukraine sought and struggled to achieve an independent state, all the while preserving their culture, language, and self-identity, and whereas today the Independent Day of Ukraine is the country's primary state holiday and is recognized by the flying of the national flag on the eve of the holiday, followed by many celebratory activities, and whereas the Ukrainian flag was reinstated in 1992 and was adopted by the Parliament of Ukraine with the color blue representing the sky, the waters of Ukraine, while the gold and yellow band of the flag is symbolic of wheat fields of the country, and whereas proud Ukrainian Canadians continue to make significant contributions to the cultural fabric of Canada, while embracing their rich history and heritage with which they share values of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Roy Ludwig, Mayor of the City of Estevan, do hereby proclaim August 24th, 2022 as Ukrainian Independence Day and urge all citizens to join in commemorating this important anniversary. On this day, let us recommit ourselves to helping the Ukrainian nation reclaim full sovereignty over its international borders and remember the heroines and heroes who sacrificed their lives to ensure freedom and happiness for future generations. Okay, do we have a motion for this, please? Okay, Councillor Walliser, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any further questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Motions from committee this evening, we have none. Consideration of bylaws, none. Inquiries, Councillor Vroba.
Thank you, Worship. I was just going to see if we could maybe send some city crews over to Wellick Road. There's some tall weeds on those city-owned lots that are behind the hospital, so I just had a complaint come over the weekend about that. And then also, City Manager, you and I had talked about maybe more garbage cans, and I was just curious if you had a response back yet. Not yet, okay, so yeah.
We have a leisure meeting on Thursday, I'll bring it up.
Excellent, thank you. And so that was just garbage cans more so on the pathway system and different locations around Estevan, just so that people aren't throwing their garbage on the ground. If we have more garbage cans available, but then we also have to see what the cost to that is, that kind of thing. So I just asked if we could maybe look into that.
Oh, okay, because I was wondering, Councillor Vroba, about Inside Affinity, and you may not be aware, but the United Mine Workers of America have offered to put, wherever we have a garbage can in Affinity, beside it, a recycle. They've offered to pay for all of that. So I know our people are working on that as well.
Yeah, and that would be very good too, because I just believe if there was more garbage cans located within the city, I think people will use them. And, you know, sometimes I know when I'm out walking, I have to go quite a distance to get to a garbage can, or there might be some on one side of the street, but not on the side that I'm on, and I know I can cross, but in the same breath, it's sometimes you're not even aware of where those garbage cans are unless they're in your pathway, so.
Okay. And maybe you can make a suggestion. If you're walking long distances and there isn't one, please let us know. Maybe that might be a good location.
Yes, and that's what the city manager was going to talk to Rod about, and we could
Okay.
maybe just figure out, even take, like what you said, take suggestions from people, because not everybody walks the same areas, so it would be nice to be able to find out which areas are more in need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Clark. First of all, I just wanted to thank you. I know you and Councillor Ford did yeoman's work over the weekend with the ball, and I think you know the people to mention we'd like to thank for all of their hard work. I know Mel Murray. Who else can you add to that list?
Thanks, Your Worship. Certainly, I would just want to talk to that. Of course, that's probably one of the most successful tournaments that have been held in this community. 15 teams over 4-day span there. Nadra Williamson was the chair of that, did a spectacular job of organizing volunteers, including Mel Murray and his grounds crew, Barry O'Hanley and Terry Walliser, Kent Phillips, to name a few. But also just want to say that how the teams responded, and we're so impressed with what we have here in our community and how the businesses and the people of Estevan made it a special weekend for them. And I think just leads us to having more events and more things in this community. Since Centennial Cup, we've just excelled at bringing people to this community and showing that what we can do. And I think it just is another step to carrying on and doing that in our community. So thanks to everybody that was involved. It was just a great and a very successful weekend for all. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you again, Councillor Clark, for all of your efforts. And Councillor Ford, I had a family commitment, so thank you for stepping to the front. I know you had an audience, a captive audience of some 400 or 500 people or more, so you did very well. Thank you for that. Councillor Walliser?
To build on that, I was hearing complaints over the weekend of people saying, well, that didn't happen when I lived in Estevan. What do you mean there was a street dance? What do you mean there was 4th Street shut down for a street fair this weekend? So people are starting to take notice. People realize that Estevan came out stronger post-pandemic and really brought the community back together with reasons to celebrate. So also congratulations out to the DBA for a very successful street fair this weekend. Further to your comments about Ukraine, I do want to ask that the city would raise the Ukrainian flag again on August 24th, as well as turning our building either blue or yellow in support on the 23rd and 24th as well.
Sure, we can do that. I see City Clerk is writing that down. Councillor Walliser, we'd be happy to do that. And yeah, that street fair as well was very well taken care of. We'd like to thank Robert and his group again for helping out with that. They do a great job, and lots of good comments on that as well. Thank you. Councillor Ford?
Thanks, Your Worship. It was actually a great pleasure to be able to go and speak at the baseball. The biggest concern I had as I was walking out there, and about 6 people told me this, I said, Becca, you're now at baseball, don't say softball. So the whole time I was like, baseball, baseball, baseball. But a big congratulations.
And then you said soccer, but that's that's something I would say.
And congratulations to Councillor Clark. He was there for basically every waking minute of that event. Anytime I went down there to watch, he was running around like a chicken with his head cut off, but he was always cool and organized, and it turned out very well. I never heard a single bad thing about it.
Absolutely.
And to add to that, the Special Olympics hosted their annual ball event on Saturday at the girls softball diamond, and I heard it went over very well despite the major heat, but I heard nothing but good things from that as well. So it was a very busy weekend of ball. And now to switch over, we've finally announced on September 23rd and 24th, we'll be hosting our innovation conference in Estevan, and it'll be the first annual, or first of hopefully many. September 23rd is the Friday, and it will be with a trade show. We'll have speakers throughout the day speaking about agriculture, energy, technology, and education, and the day will finish with a banquet where Jeff Sanquist will be our keynote speaker. And then Saturday is an event put on by the U of R. They'll be hosting a pitch competition throughout the day, so you can go check that out before you go to your free concert. Tickets are $75, and you can find more information at innovationestevan.ca. And a huge shout out to Erin Wilson. She's been working very, very hard to get this put together and keeping us all in line and organized. So it's a big thank you to her for really helping us get this all together.
Thank you very much. And yes, Aaron does a great job, as all of our managers do. Thank you, Aaron, for your extra work in helping to make that, which will be a great success. Unfortunately, I will be out of town. It will be more weight on your slender shoulders, Becca, or Councillor Ford, but I know you'll rise to the occasion. Thank you. Councillor Frank.
Thanks, Your Worship. No, the only thing I just wanted to echo all the comments towards the minor ball and street fair and everything else that went on this weekend. It is, this was definitely as big, very reminiscent of Centennial Cup, having all these people in town and seeing just great economic boom to everybody. So it's fantastic
Absolutely.
to see. And now we have curling coming up pretty soon this winter. So another major event coming, as well as concerts and all sorts of things. It's nice to be back to good old Estevan instead of COVID Estevan. So
Yes, totally.
It's a wonderful reminder of the strength of our community.
Yeah, the fact we're turning the page, and again, we can't thank our volunteers enough, but we've been busy since the Centennial Cup. And again, our businesses couldn't be happier, so that's great. Thank you. City Manager?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Okay, City Clerk? You're always so quiet. City Treasurer?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Okay, with that, do we have a motion to move into committee? Thank you. Councillor Walliser, seconded by Councillor Ford. All in favor? Carried. We stand adjourned. Thank you and good evening.